My annotated bibliography was in terms of the social issues in education. I tried to find a wide variety of social issues that are affecting students these days, and one of the first ones that I found was on transgender students. This topic has been in the media lately due to celebrities changing and doing these changes and living different lifestyles. And there is a lot of information that people are unaware of yet, and yet we have students that are transgender and students that are living with bullying and with hostile school environments and climates. And I think that this article brought awareness for me to learn more about transgender students and what they may be going through. I did have a student that has gone through a sex change that I had 20 years ago, and I was unaware of what he might have been going through in my classroom. So this article provided me with some guidance as to where I can find information and a little bit more about how I can set aside my own biases in order for the students to have a healthy school environment and a safe school environment. The second article I read was about children in dire poverty. The article was provided some statistics that 3 million children are living on $2 per day, and there's a book, Living on Two, with that heading in it, in the title. Children in these extreme poverty situations are less likely to thrive in school, and there's health issues involved in that. But as educators, understanding poverty and the community and the school coming together to maybe possibly help those parents move out of poverty, as well as providing support for those students, is what this article discussed mainly. Another article by Flannery was on teen dating abuse. I thought it was shocking that 1 in 10 have been physically injured by a significant other, and that 1 in 3 U.S. adolescents say they've experienced abuse. Now, I understand, that students have a wider variety of social outputs and influences, and that is increasing the ability for them to be abused and to be manipulated. And the article discusses how educators can start being more positive role models for them in terms of their self-awareness and self-esteem, because a lot of students are getting lots of information from social media that might not be a positive influence on their self-esteem. This next article, my next article was on later education start times in adolescence. I thought this was very interesting. I did not know that adolescents' biological clocks are set to sleep later in the morning. I do know, however, that my own children tend to be very tired by the end of the week, and this article discusses that start times for school should be later in the morning, and that they would do better on tests, and that there's scientific evidence that they have done better on tests, and that they are healthier with later start times due to it matching more of their biological clocks. Now, some of the negatives, or the debate over this, is that parents' schedules are set already, bus schedules, athletic schedules, activity schedules, and so changing the start time changes all activities before and after school time. And so there's a lot of resistance in changing, even though there's lots of scientific evidence to prove that this would improve scores and health among our students. I thought that was amazing. My understanding was always that students did better earlier in the morning, and you want to put your best classes first thing in the morning. But I guess this article discusses the health issues of maybe starting later in the day, and along with some of the other articles as far as social issues, I found that block scheduling and starting later in the day combined together improves test scores and the health of all of our students. So it's something to look into, hard to put in place with change being difficult for communities that are set up around schedules for many years already, and that's really difficult to change. The next article that I read was The Far-Reaching Effects of Implicit Bias in the Classroom. This article made me aware of my own bias that I may be implying to the students that they are less able to succeed, less able to attend college, or that they will behave, or misbehave in my classroom based on my own biases of maybe what I know about their family, about their place in the community, about what their parents do for a living. And it really made me self-reflect on what I may think about students and how, even though I try not to be stereotypical or prejudiced, I may still be doing these things. And by becoming more aware of what my thought processes are and my self-reflecting on my actions, I can try to control my implicit biases and that I've learned from an early on point in my life, and try to work towards not having those biases in the future. I thought it was a really good article that had lots of examples and testimonies from people, how they felt when things were implied or how things were said to them, and how they took those statements and those implications. So I thought it was an important article for teachers to realize that we may have some long-held beliefs that we know might be wrong, and we're not trying to believe in them, but we have ways that we've behaved and learned how to behave that we need to reflect on and change. My next article discusses how influential kids can hold the key to stopping bullying. I found this very interesting that, and I know this has been implemented in schools that I've been in, the character counts and trying to get some of the leaders, student leaders in the school that other students look up to, involved in being a part of those programs. And this article is employing that concept with the bullying programs that we've been implementing. If we have student leaders showing how to behave properly and standing up against bullying and being a part of those programs and implementing those programs, the success rate was found to be higher in those schools that had those students involved. If students follow students, peer pressure, if we can have positive peer pressure, we can employ better anti-bullying programs, according to this article. The next article I read was by Walker, and it was on block schedules. Now, this one tied into the earlier start time article that I read. After I read this article, it led me to think more about the earlier or the later start times, because they did touch on that subject in this article. Our block schedules the stress buster students need. Block scheduling allows students to have less subjects covered in a day. So instead of having 8 different classes that they go to, they're going to 4 or 3 different classes for longer periods of time. They can get more in-depth learning involved, and they can have projects that take longer time so that you're not continually picking up, cleaning up. They can have a longer time to work on those projects together. And by not moving around the school so much every 50 minutes or every 40 to 50 minutes, the students are in one place for longer periods of time. And that leads to less fatigue for the students at the end of the day, less homework in terms of multiple subjects to take care of in that evening. So the block scheduling, again, the resistance is change. Change is hard to do. Most of our schedules, most of our teachers have worked for years with the 7-period day or 8-period day at 50 minutes a day, and we would have to change how we teach. So there'd have to be, and this article discusses that there'd have to be more education with teachers on how to change their teaching style, and there'd have to be education with the community as to the effects, the positive effects of going to a block schedule. I thought this was interesting, and I do know a teacher that is moving to a school next year that employs the block schedule, and he's working on right now retraining himself on how to teach in that method. The last article that I read was about children of incarcerated parents and their struggles at school. This is a topic that I never even considered as an issue until teaching at my current school. I've had some students whose parents have gone to jail, and I never really thought about how that affected my students to the extent that this article raised to me. I did notice, that the students had difficulties, but to the extent that this article raised, this article really brought about some ideas for me to think about in terms of the students and how they're feeling and how it affects not only their mental health but their physical health. Losing a parent, they're now living without the parent, on top of the shame of the parent on them when they really don't need to feel that shame, but it's something that they will experience. The amount of students that have incarcerated parents and the type of students that have incarcerated parents is alarming as well. The more poverty-stricken students, families have parents that are incarcerated, and so there's a trend, and there's some issues that need to be dealt with so that we can stop this cycle. Otherwise, we'll have more of the same instead of improved education for these students so that they can learn better ways and they can have the support that they need during this time. I think it's an important topic that probably many of us educators haven't really considered